We are in an early model JK with a 6-liter LS L96, a combination we've done a lot of times before. Very reliable combination. You all know the 6-liter is a great expedition engine. Iron block, runs on regular gas, as bulletproof as it gets when it comes to V8 engines. The only thing it really has is VVT, but I can say over the years we haven't had any issues with that. We get guys changing the cams out on these L86s like the last test drive I did. But overall, it's an extremely reliable engine. This one does have a little bit of a trick. You guys saw that exhaust cutout we did for Moby. Well, check this out. Open, close. The L96 has had a lot of burden put upon it. GM started off with the LY6, and even prior to that, the Gen 3 engines like the LQ motors, the LQ4, the LQ9, to haul their heavy-duty trucks. Now, heavy-duty trucks like diesel engines, but diesel engines are heavy and expensive, and if you wanted the lower-cost version in a 25 or a 3500 series truck, you got the gas motor. In 2007, 8, and 9, you had the LY6, which is the predecessor of this engine. It didn't have the flex fuel capability, had smaller injectors, had a slightly different operating system, different map sensor, but in 2010, GM released the L96 and its cousin, the LC8, which is essentially the same engine, but has a lot of non-corrosion components in it for running other fuels like natural gas and propane. But the L96 has been the mainstay of the gas one-ton trucks for a long time, because even when GM dropped the LS engines in the mid-2010s, they continued to make the L96. In fact, I think the L96 was available right up through 19, maybe even 20. It's also a new production, so you can get these new from your dealership. So it was just an engine that was too valuable to obsolete, and they didn't. And I'm glad they didn't, because it's still a good, viable engine for a conversion. So let's look at the reasons why you might want to go with an L96 and why you might not. The L96, as I said, is still currently available new. So that's a bonus, because a lot of the LS engines are not. The prices are still reasonable. There's lots of them in wrecking yards, so used, they're going for good prices, and new, they're just over $5,000, somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 new in a crate. While you can run the 6L90 and we can support it, it is a larger, heavier transmission and probably too much transmission for your JK. Unless you're supercharged or have 50-inch tires, there's really no reason for the 6L90 in my opinion, but we can support it. The L96 has good power and torque. Now, I'm not going to say it has LS3 6.2 LT performance, but it's got really good performance. It'll surprise you. It's got good bottom end. It'll haul your JK up the grades without breaking a sweat. It's just a good old reliable engine. Now, when I say reliable, it has an iron block so it can handle the heat and the cold. It has lower compression so it can run on lower grades of fuel. I've seen these engines go 300,000 miles without being rebuilt. So that brings us to the next thing, and that's value. Because these engines are low cost and they offer decent performance, I think they're one of the best values out there. Power-wise, they'll run right up there with the 5.7 Hemis, and with a 6-speed transmission, in my opinion, they perform better. Plus, you can easily modify your L96. We see guys putting heads on them like that last test drive I did, superchargers. In fact, pretty soon here, you're going to see a 800 horsepower turbocharged 6-liter that Miguel over at Velocity Performance did. Of course, he beefed up the internals. It reminds me of that 5.3 that had 700 or 800 horsepower we helped those Australians with a few years ago in a Dodge Dart. Yeah, it was a right-hand drive Dodge Dart from Australia. They were crossing America, and they had a turbocharged 5.3. But Miguel has a turbocharger on this thing the size of a toilet bowl, and we'll be doing a short little clip on that soon. So the L96 can be whatever you want, but what I think it really is best for is expedition. If you got a heavy JK roof rack, maybe you tow a little bit, put the L96 in. Lower compression, you can run on lower grades of fuel. If you don't have to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, then the L96 may be your engine. The L96 can cross a desert or a frozen tundra, and it's really designed for harsh circumstances, because while you may not think street driving is harsh, if you're in a 10,000 pound truck on a 110-degree day here in Vegas and you're hauling glass or whatever, and that engine is subject to a high duty cycle, meaning the throttle is open a lot, just like an aeroplane. So the engine has to be tuned and built to handle those circumstances, where the half-ton motors are designed for better performance because they know you're not going to be wide open throttle as much or place the engine under as much of a load as long of a time. So the 6-liter really was built to be durable. Now I will say, with the stock tune, the 6-liter can be a little bit doggy. And when I say doggy, it still has 330, 340 horsepower, but in order to build all those safeties in, GM reduced the performance enrichment and the spark advance. Now when I say performance enrichment, you know that means it fattens the motor up, probably more so than the standard engines, because they want it to stay safe under a heavy load. Well, that results in less fuel economy. The 6-liter shares almost identical architecture to the 5.3 and the 6.2 half-ton motors. So by putting in a 6.2 tune, we get most of the advantages of the half-ton engine. The performance enrichment, spark timing, and all the other parameters in the operating system now are geared around more performance and less heavy-duty use, and it really wakes these things up. We're probably pushing 375 to 380 horsepower with a standard 6.2 tune. And of course, with a little bit of tweaking, you can probably push close to 400. To get more than that, you're going to have to cam, intake, all that. But that's nothing to sneeze at, especially for a lower compression engine that can run in regular gas. So if you're looking for an engine that can go the distance, has a lot of value for dollar, take a good hard look at the LS 6.0. One caveat, the 6.0 is a heavy-duty truck engine. Check your local emissions regulations. You can always step back to a 5.3, which we have an executive order on. Yes, you're not going to get that bottom end torque and quite as much horsepower, but they're virtually identical engines. The LMG is an all-iron 5.3, just like the 6.0. The LC9 is the aluminum version. If you step up to the 6.2, all aluminum, higher compression, you got to run premium gas, but you're pushing over 400 horsepower. So those are kind of the options you have. Guys, we got a lot of good stuff coming up. We got an LT5, LT4, a 650 horsepower LS3. I'm going to show you Miguel's 800 horsepower turbo. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up.